Good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Thomas Binkley. How are you today?
Very good.
It's good to have you on the show. I thought about you recently when we had a mutual friend on the show, Eric Thompson, and he was, talking about some of his life experiences. And I was thinking about you because I knew I saw on LinkedIn you got your MBA, and we go back a long ways, man. We've
We
worked
do.
together and we've had some good times and we've backed each other up on some difficult issues in the world of telecommunications. So why don't we start off with your story, what you were telling me the other day? I thought it was real interesting stuff. How did you find your way to telecommunications? Start from
Um,
the beginning.
so high school, I was accepted to a couple of different colleges, and I didn't like that it was going to take me 4 to 5 years to get through school. I ended up finding out about DeVry and that I could get through the program in under 3 years because they go year round. And I like the idea of being able to complete something a little quicker and go right to work, right? Like we all come from working class families for the most part. That seemed like a better way to get out and start making money myself. So filled out like a contact card for a DeVry rep, and they came and sat down at my parents' dining room table
Sweet.
and had a conversation about technology and where things were going. And I started talking about this telecommunications thing and how big it was going to be as a result of the internet. Because we were still, this is right before we started using DSL and having bandwidth in our house via another medium besides dial-up phones. So um, starting there and saying, yeah, that sounds like a direction I want to go in was was the beginning for me. I ended up going to school, graduating 3 years later in Southern California, and then started looking for a job. And it was a telecommunications management degree, a Bachelor of Science, because I know like DeVry is a great joke. It
And
can be,
well,
but I do have a Bachelor of Science degree from there.
hey, awesome, awesome.
Um, so from there, ended up interviewing for several different jobs as a result of being front loaded for positions because of that degree and that curriculum. And started working in Southern California as a field tech for another telecommunications company, which was good. Instead of a management path right away, I learned the physical pieces of doing the work. Right. I think
Physical
further
layer,
on, go ahead.
the physical layer.
Yeah. Yeah. The physical layer. Further on, that's been the most useful thing. I can relate to just about anybody from top to bottom on either what it is they're doing or what a general concept of what it is they need to get done is. So, um, switched coastlines several times as a result of telecom.
How many times did you go back and forth from Cali to the East Coast?
Six.
Six.
Yeah. Actually, I think no, this is number five. There won't be a six, I hope. Right. So I'm on the opposite coast now, and I want to stay here, I think.
Good, 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 good. Well,
So
that's interesting, man. So California, and then DC area, and then also New Jersey, New York.
yeah,
Talk about your. I
California.
know you have a connection to the New York area. Talk about that a little bit.
So I ended up in New Jersey after Lucent went on a hiring spree. Lucent became another conglomerate company later on.
Mhm.
But I ended up at Bell Labs working on prototype equipment that was in trials for voice over IP. And I like to say that I grew up in California and I became an adult in New Jersey, um,
Cool, cool.
for some good reasons. That was really like me getting away from being close to my parents and having to do things on my own and growing up.
Mhm.
Um, and then shifting between that job and the amount of travel required to various customer sites was really good for me to get out and sort of see what customers were asking for, and then being able to apply what I already knew combined with what this product did to kind of show them how it would affect their customer base in a good way. Because this is the beginning of our competitive local exchange market, where we had carriers that were going to compete with the larger carriers like Verizon and AT&T for business and residential and business customers.
The
So
.com era.
yeah, yeah. And then I ended up getting laid off there and moving back to California and working for Alcatel, which ended up buying Lucent later on.
Mhm.
And got laid off again like 60 days later. Again, not my fault, but the market was changing and so were the conditions.
How many layoffs in your career so far?
I've had
Oh, let's not
three,
say so far. How many have
I've
you?
had
There won't be
yeah,
any
let's
more.
not do that. I've had three layoffs, and I've been notified that I was going to be part of one if I didn't find another job once.
Sweet, nice.
So
That was nice of them.
yeah, I think it's hard when that happens because the further out you get, the harder it is to sort of point at that and go, "That was market conditions."
Right.
But I've never been singled out on my own. It's always been related to a project I've been a part of. And I think the toughest thing for that is you sink all this time and energy into something you really believe in,
Right.
and then you lose your paycheck and you get your heart broken.
Yeah, the rug is literally snatched from under you, and financially,
Yep.
professionally, in like so many ways, and then you got to recover from it.
Mhm.
One of the things I don't know if I've ever told you, real quick, my story. Did I ever tell you how I got into telecommunications?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, I was actually a conference call operator, and this was, I guess, about 30 years ago. I was downtown on K Street. Actually, I was waiting tables, and we had a shift meeting, and one of the other people on my shift was like, "Hey, there's a part-time job available. Anybody interested?" And I guess everybody on that was working with me, they had too much money. No one was interested but me. you know. So I said, "I'm interested." And so she gave me an address, told me to go downtown DC, and she said, "Just fill out an application and interview." I didn't even know what I was interviewing for. I was just like, "Okay, cool." I was in college at the time. So I went, I interviewed, and turns out I was going to be a conference call operator, and they hired me. And, obviously now, Zoom, all this stuff is automated. There's no one putting you into the conference call.
Well,
like,
even going back to when you and I worked together, your tact on a serious issue when you and I would work together was really good. Like, really
oh,
good.
well, thank
Like
you,
you
man.
could manage a lot of different elements that were going on at the same time, and it never seemed like it got to you, right? You always had a pretty good rapport with the people that were on the call, and were able to get that going pretty quickly. So
Well,
that doesn't really surprise me.
uh-huh. Well, I think that's kind of a common thread in our line of work. Um, you're usually in the line of fire. Some days are calm and you feel like you're stealing money, and when you're not doing a whole lot that day other than maybe checking the network in lieu of working on problems. But normally it's hectic, and normally, so you got to get used to managers coming at you asking for information. You got to get used to managing, like you said, people in the field, testing, and multiple things going on. So I don't regret it one bit because it prepared me for where I am now. And getting back to you, what made you decide to pursue, to go to grad school? What kind of made you move in that direction?
So, okay, fast forward a few moves cross country. I ended up in California working on a project for a new streaming media um, device that didn't really go the way it was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I could kind of see the writing on the wall. And I started looking at other jobs on LinkedIn and around what my experience sort of, excuse me, the experience I could actually market versus what jobs were out there for the amount of money I was making. The only way I could see that I would get close to making the same amount of money was an MBA. So that sort of pushed me in the direction of getting one rather than being, I'd like to do this. It's sort of an aspirational goal. It turned into this is happening.
Cool, cool.
Right. So knowing that was sort of coming, I applied for an employee benefit to have my MBA paid for by
Okay,
work. Right.
nice,
So
nice.
it was a program that they had at the time, and my boss at the time, we had a quick discussion, and he signed off on it, saying that it was probably a really good program for me to jump into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and started. My scheduled start date was like 2 weeks before I was scheduled to be laid off. I ended up
Wow.
finding another position, right before everything went badly and transferred into a new group. But that was sort of okay, are they going to end up paying for just my first semester? Because that were the conditions of the layoff. You actually get the first semester you're in, or am I going to find something quick enough to continue the program? And I did. But having that ability as a benefit to get an MBA to further yourself, and your financial investment is zero, it's all effort. Why not?
So you don't pay for books, you don't pay for anything.
I didn't have to pay for books. I didn't have to pay for tuition fees. They waived my application fee. They paid nothing.
And what was the grade that you had to get in order to have you? Was it a reimbursement arrangement or did they pay?
They paid directly when I submitted my
Wow.
grades, so I
Nice.
didn't have
That's
I didn't
nice.
even have to do the reimbursement.
Nice.
The requirement for the program was a 2.0. So you had to maintain a 2.0 to get your reimbursement, the financial piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
To graduate, you needed to have an over 3.0 cumulative. So there was a little bit of a difference between what was required to graduate and what was required to get payback.
Wow. Were there any challenges along the way? How many years did it take to get your MBA, start to finish?
I had a bump in the middle. So I had some health problems that required me to take a semester off, but it would have been 3 years. I did it in 3 years and 3 months.
Okay.
Right. So I did one class at a time. And this is what I would tell anybody else to do. You don't want to do two just to hit the finish line at the end, because your cumulative grades are probably not going to be as good and your retention is not going to be as great.
Right.
So one class at a time while working. And I stopped to have both of my knees replaced.
Wow.
One semester.
Jeez.
So there was a hold up. Going back to school after that was a struggle, right? Like it's tough when you're still battling some recovery issues and dealing with I think I'm not going to say the long-term effects, but the cumulative effects of the drugs you need to just sort of recover.
Okay.
So I went right back to school. I think I took 3 months off and went right back. So
that's pretty intense, 3 years. But at the same time, I like what you said. One class at a time. That probably gave you the ability to really focus on each class and really get the most out of each class.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you and I didn't talk about the other day that I think is really important is, for our age, your life experience is the most valuable thing you have.
True.
Right. So the application of what these abstract tools are that you learn in a management class are no longer abstract. You have life experience that lends to your weekly curriculum that you're required to do, either some write-up that it's part of a discussion group or a paper. It becomes the most valuable piece of what you know, and how you can apply that in sort of an educational scenario is invaluable. It was to me. I think it was a huge self-esteem boost to go, wait, all of these things that I've already experienced, I can use. So that's one thing that I would say about anybody who's afraid of going at an older age. You have something that you may not realize is invaluable.
I'm glad you said that, because I think I mentioned to you before we started the show this morning. I kind of had a vision that this show could be really useful for let's just say Generation X. I don't want to make you older than you are, but not that millennials don't need grad school or won't go to grad school, but some of what we're talking about today is being towards the end of your career. And I think you'll agree with this. The things that I've noticed the last 10 years or so, whenever I was laid off twice during COVID, but it was because I was contracting. So it's not like, I can paint this picture of this brutal world that was out to get me. There was a time stamp on my employment. I knew it. And it was actually, I'm glad. It's kind of risky contracting, and when you're older, because, you with that experience that you talked about, your price tag is a little higher than someone fresh out of college. And let's face it, age discrimination, it's a real thing. And you really start to taste it when you hit your 50s and 60s and you're still trying to work. Your resume will get pushed aside because I can hire someone fresh out of college and they'll be super cheap. Yeah, I might have to train them and everything. but they'll listen. They'll do what they're told. They won't be an old dog that I have to teach new tricks. So we're up against all of that, and we have to give ourselves a competitive edge. And I think an MBA was a smart way to do that.
I would
So
agree.
how do you feel now that you have your MBA? Well, how do you feel that's gonna carry you to the end of your career at this point?
So I think for me, the toughest part was I completed it, and then it was like, okay, what's next, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
had something sort of land in my lap afterwards, that was different. I ended up in I'm going to say a tested engineering role without giving too much away,
Good, good. Yeah, I got
where I get to play with some pretty cool stuff,
you. Mm-hmm.
but I'm not necessarily using the MBA piece of it where I'm managing people.
Mm-hmm.
My write-ups are better as a result of having 3 years of writing papers with graduate students and that sort of interaction.
I'm
So
sure.
there's value there. I did get a promotion before I ended up taking this job, and I would definitely say it was part of me doing this program because work realized that I was doing 55 to 60 hours a week with overtime,
Wow.
and doing an MBA at the same time pretty regularly. So being able to manage both showed I had some aptitude and some willingness to take on more. Um, there was some things there that were useful, right? Like it was during COVID. What am I going to go do? I'm not going on vacation. I might as well work more. Right. So,
Right.
there were some things there that definitely contributed to me being able to do that. But it was not the hardest thing for me to kind of transition out of working and then go right to working on the MBA at home. Right. There wasn't a drive home and then sitting down and then open up a laptop and getting into that again. It wasn't a reset. It was just one to the other.
That makes
So
a difference.
that made a huge difference for me. Still would like to try making sourdough bread.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna leave the sourdough bread to my brother and my mom. They got that covered. I'm not gonna go down that road. I'm gonna keep trying to stay gainfully employed while I'm putting these adult children through college. You said something that made me think about, when I was on my journey. I don't have a master's, I have a bachelor's degree, but I would not have my bachelor's degree because it took me, it was 2 years, it was a 2 year program, and like yours, one class at a time. And many times when it was time to register for class, I would say, man, I'm gonna take a break. I'm tired. I have kids and everything, household, you gotta cut the grass. Any excuse you could think of to not go back to school. And I'm already making good money. I'm all these things in your head you justify not finishing. And then I had this manager, his name was Troy, and he would see me in the hallway, say, "Oh, did the school start yet? I'm gonna take a break." He'd be like, I need you to go register for classes. And I owe him because I never took a break, and in large in part because of his peer pressure. And I graduated, and I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. Most of the jobs I've had the last 3 years, 3 to 5 years, required me to have at a minimum a bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell anybody out there that's watching this, if you're thinking about going to school for the first time, if you're thinking about getting your going to grad school, get your master's, just get started. Like I think Tom is a testament. Banks, I'm gonna call you Banks because that's what we used to call you in the office. Banks is a testament to just get started and just keep going. And next thing you know, you're walking across that stage.
The one comment I would make about this is lifestyle change wise.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big sports fan.
Right.
I love
Right.
going to see soccer. I love hockey. All of that for 3 years got put on a shelf. I didn't
No, did you? I didn't
any,
ask you about that. You put
yeah,
all your sports stuff aside, did you now?
yeah. I didn't watch anything. I didn't travel. I didn't do anything. I focused on that degree. Right.
Wow.
That was the beginning and the end of how I committed to that MBA. I got the reward when I finished. I've been to plenty of games this year, right? But I did set aside that element for a while. And it was really important for me to have that disconnect because it's a notable distraction. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy the chaos, but you can't do that, right?
You know what? That I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was one of the things I remembered about you when we worked together. You were a New York Red. Were you a Red Bull season ticket holder?
I was.
And you would
I
go
have
up to New York to go to games.
Yeah, I
So
have
you're an
switched.
avid fan.
Mhm. I have
Wow.
since switched. I now have season tickets for NYCFC.
Okay. Cool.
I
Cool.
have for about 6 years. I've changed up the game since the Metro showed up at my doorstep. So now I take the Silver Line to Union Station and to Acela up and go to Yankee Stadium for games, but I'm still doing it.
Big baller. Oh man, I love
It's
it,
great.
man.
It's great.
I love it. I love it, man. That's cool. That's the good life, and that's why you sacrifice and you get that MBA and you focus on your career so that in your free time, if you want to catch the train up to New York and catch a game and with your friends, you can do that, and it's not a huge deal.
Mhm.
You know. So look, man, I just want to thank you. This has been an awesome show. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get something out of it. It's not just Gen Xers, but millennials, Gen Y, all of them should watch this because it's some good lessons on working and walking and chewing gum at the same time.
It committing to something and finishing is one of the most rewarding things you can do. And I think a lot of us want that from our job. And it doesn't always happen that way because of economic conditions or someone else making a decision about the project you're on getting shut down. No one can take an MBA away from you. No one can take a degree away from
Right.
you, right? And the last thing I would say about this for me was when we have other things going on in our lives that are challenging, having that outlet where you just need to focus and get something done and know you can do that and you're equipped to while there's other things, other pieces of chaos in your life that you may not be able to manage is huge. So
Right. That's a great way to end the show because I would say, yeah, to the point that it not so much made a man out of me, but it helped my experience working and going to school. It helped me to kind of grow up and mature in terms of having to be a little bit more organized and what you were talking about. That sacrifice. You're not going to be able to go to all the parties. You're not going to be able to go to all of the games. You're gonna when everybody else is having fun some weekends, you're gonna have to do your papers and whatnot. So, hey, look, man, it's been great. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I wish you the utmost success. And at some point, I'll have you back on the show so you can tell people what you're up to.
thank you. I'm extremely proud of what you're doing, and I love this. I love looking forward to the videos coming out. I'm really enjoying seeing what you're doing now. I might get a little teary eyed here. I'm super proud of you.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate you. And to the audience out there, if you like this show, I know a lot of you will because it's some good information. Hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day. So many questions, but very few answers. Will I die from a bullet or will I die from cancer? Hate this life I live. How much more can I give? It hurt what you did. Now you ask me to forgive? While mom collapsed in a foyer the day I got her home. She died in my arms and left me all alone. The pain almost destroyed me, so I turned to the bottle. Had to get it together for Malachi. He needed me to be a father. Why did people just move on after Big and Pac got shot? I was inspired to write this song because the track came out so hot. Why Puff ain't take a bullet? Why Suge's still alive? Why the label make more money when talented rappers die? Why'd I used to drink so much or feel compelled to get high? Cause most people are stressing me when they should really be on my side. Why do we avoid clean energy when gas prices are high? Because oil's thicker than blood, so I'm barely getting by. Why is the Second Amendment more important than gun control? Because Americans care more about bearing arms and birth control. Why are we building walls when we need to build a bridge? We only care about ourselves, we're like selfish little kids. So many questions, but very few answers. Will I die from a bullet or will I die from cancer? Hate this life I live, how much more can I give? It hurt what you did, now you ask me to forgive? So many questions, but very few answers. Will I